So, 2 Samuel, I want us to look at Abishai. So, the next book in the Bible is 2 Samuel. So, come to chapter 18. David is, he is now about 60 years old. So, Abishai's been with him since his 20s. Now David is about 65 years old. And Absalom, you remember David's son Absalom rebels against David, his own son, and is trying to take over the kingdom and trying to kill his own dad. Are you guys familiar with that story? So David flees for his life. In chapter 18, verse 1, David mustered the men who were with him and appointed over them commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds. David sent out his troops, a third under the commander Joab, and a third under Joab's brother Abishai, son of Zeruiah, and a third under Ittai the Gittite. So Abishai was in charge of a third of his army. So he's still with him. Now, this is interesting. Come back to chapter 16. I don't know if you remember this story. Do you remember when David was fleeing from his son Absalom? He's fleeing out of Jerusalem. Absalom's moving in to take over. Do you remember there's a guy that starts swearing and cursing at David? His name was Shimei. So chapter 16, verse 5. Like I have a heading, Shimei curses David. So verse 5, as King David approached Bahurim, a man from the same clan as Saul's family came out from there. His name was Shimei, son of Gera, and he cursed as he came out. He pelted David and all the king's officials with stones, though all the troops and the special guard were on David's right and left. As he cursed, Shimei said, get out, you murderer, you scoundrel. The Lord has repaid you for all the blood you have shed in the household of Saul, in whose place you have reigned. The Lord has given the kingdom into the hands of your son Absalom. You have come to ruin because you're a murderer. This Shimei is horrible. He's mean. It's actually not even true. Verse 9. Then Abishai, this is David's friend. He's right next to him. Then Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said to the king, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over and cut off his head. Okay? But it reminds me of when they sneak in on Saul, Abishai goes, let me do Saul in right here. I only need to do the spear one time. I don't need 2 shots. And David's like, no, don't. Now Abishai is, let me cut the guy's head off. Okay? So David goes, verse 10. But the king said, what does this have to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? Maybe he's cursing me because the Lord said to him, curse David. Who can ask, why do you do this? David then said to Abishai and all his officials, my son, my own flesh and blood, is trying to kill me. How much more than this Benjamite? Leave him alone. Let him curse, for the Lord may have told him to do it, okay? But Abishai's right there. He's his friend. They've been together 40 years. Now, they go to battle with Absalom. David and his army win. Couple years. Now David is coming back to Jerusalem. And guess who meets David when he's coming back? Shimei. So come over to chapter 19. David's now coming back. A few years has gone by. David has won. So he's coming back to be king again, back in Jerusalem. So verse 18 of chapter 19, they crossed at the ford to take the king's household over and to do whatever he wished. When Shimei, son of Gera, crossed the Jordan, he fell prostrate before the king. So now he's singing a different tune, right? The guy you were cursing and throwing stones at is victorious and coming back. So now he's like, he falls before King David, verse 19, and he said to him, may my Lord not hold me guilty. Do not remember how your servant did wrong on the day my Lord the king left Jerusalem. May the king put it out of his mind, for I, your servant, know that I have sinned, but today I have come here as the first man from the tribes of Joseph to come down and meet my Lord the king. David's best friend is right next to him. Then Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said, shouldn't Shimei be put to death for this? He cursed the Lord's anointed. David replied, what does this have to do with you, sons of Zeruiah? What right do you have to interfere? Should anyone be put to death in Israel today? Don't I know that today I am king over Israel? So the king said to Shimei, okay, I won't kill you. So once again, his good friend says, this is a couple years later, David's probably 67, and David dies at 70, by the way. And Abishai says, this guy's such a hypocrite. This guy is so bad. Let me do him in for you. And David, this is a day of celebration, Abishai, don't. Now, so this is twice that David's friend says, David, listen, a good friend stands by your side. A good friend defends you against your enemies. So don't get upset. You know, if I'm a friend and I see one of my friends being bullied, I'm going to be like, hey, I'm stepping in. I'm going to tell that person that's bullying you where they belong. A good friend protects, okay? So don't go, well, what's this Abishai doing? And by the way, I'm not convinced that David actually didn't take the advice of his good friend, who told him twice, let me do him in. And you know why that I think that Abishai was a good, what does Abishai mean? Gift of God. Because let me tell you the rest of the story. When David's 70 years old, he's dying. He's on his deathbed. And he has his final wishes to tell Solomon, his son. And here's one, he has 3 wishes, and here's one of David's wishes. When the time drew near for David to die, he gave a charge to Solomon, his son. And remember, you have with you Shimei, son of Gera, the Benjamite from Barum, who called down bitter curses on me that day I went to Mahanaim. When he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by the Lord, I will not put you to death by the sword. But now do not consider him innocent. You're a man of wisdom. You'll know what to do with him. Bring his gray head down to the grave. So it's funny. I mean, David's like, you know, he tells his friend, today's not the day. Later on, 2 years later, his friend says, David, today's not the day. But don't underestimate that David, thank you for that advice. And David on his deathbed, Solomon, take care of that guy. Which Solomon has a crafty way of taking care of that, which Shimei brings it upon himself. But I'll let you read the rest of the story.